Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me.
In the heart of the Empire, where steam and magic twisted together in an intricate dance of progress and tradition, Felix stood at the crossroads of destiny. His hands were smeared with oil, the tang of metal in the air, and the rhythmic hum of machinery reverberated through his workshop. Outside, the towering spires of the capital city belched plumes of steam into the sky, their dark silhouettes framed against a world of possibilities. Yet, beneath this veneer of industrial glory, a wrought festered the iron grip of the elite families, who controlled both the magic and the machinery that ran the empire, choking the voice of the common people. Felix was no stranger to their influence. Born to a modest family of inventors, he had grown up watching the same few families pass the presidential title from one generation to the next. The office of president had become nothing more than a symbol of power consolidation. The great mechanical inventions that once stood as symbols of hope now served as tools of control. But Felix had a plan, one that would shake the empire to its core. He stepped back from his latest creation, wiping the sweat from his brow. The vanguard, his magnum opus, gleamed under the soft light of the lanterns. A machine like no other, a fusion of steam-driven mechanics and the ancient magic that flowed through the veins of the empire. It was sleek yet powerful, built for more than just combat. It was a symbol of resistance. Felix had designed it for one purpose: to break the stranglehold of the elite families. Tomorrow, he would present his idea to the Imperial Council. It was a bold plan, perhaps foolish in the eyes of the old guard, but Felix had faith. He had proposed a mechanical competition where presidential candidates would battle each other using machines of their own invention. The goal wasn't just to win through brute strength, it was to demonstrate leadership, creativity, and the ability to adapt in real time, qualities far more valuable than the inherited privilege the elite families held dear. As the day of the council meeting arrived, Felix stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. The grand hall of the council chamber loomed before him, a structure of iron and glass, filled with the creak of gears and the soft hum of magic running through the walls. The council members, some men and women of wealth and power, watched him with expressions of mild amusement as he laid out his vision. A competition, Felix began, his voice clear, where each candidate for president must enter the battlefield themselves, commanding a machine of their own creation. This is not just about strength or wealth, it's about ingenuity. It's about proving that the one who leads this empire understands the very heart of what makes it great: our machines and our magic, working in harmony. There were murmurs among the council members. Some scoffed, others leaned forward, intrigued. Felix locked eyes with Lord Reginald, the head of the most powerful family in the empire, and the man most likely to take the presidency if things went as they always had. Reginald's sharp features betrayed a hint of disdain, but he said nothing. Not yet. It was Lady Celeste, another member of the elite, who finally spoke. You propose that we, the leaders of this empire, step into the arena ourselves? Fight like common soldiers? Preposterous. Felix's jaw clenched. Not soldiers. Leaders. Leaders who must understand the struggles of those they command. If you cannot operate a machine, if you cannot innovate on the battlefield, then what right do you have to lead those who can? The room fell silent. The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, Felix feared they would laugh him out of the chamber. But then, from the far corner of the room, an unexpected voice spoke up. The boy has a point. Heads turned to the elderly man sitting quietly at the edge of the council. It was Master Alaric, one of the oldest members of the council, a relic of the empire's golden age, and a man whose opinion carried immense weight. In my day, Alaric continued, his voice gruff, a leader wasn't just someone who sat in a chair and gave orders. They were on the front lines. If this competition proves anything, it will be who truly deserves to lead. I say we give the boy his chance. The murmur grew into a chorus of agreement. Felix's heart soared as the council voted in favor of his proposal. The competition would happen, and Felix would enter the race for president alongside the most powerful families in the empire. But as Felix left the council chamber, his victory felt short-lived. He knew the elites wouldn't take this challenge lying down, and sure enough, that evening, as he worked late into the night, he noticed something strange, an odd flicker in the energy core of the vanguard. Upon closer inspection, Felix realized it had been tampered with. Someone had tried to sabotage his machine. His blood boiled with rage, but he knew anger wouldn't serve him now. Felix worked through the night, adjusting the core and finding a way to turn the sabotage to his advantage. The next morning, the vanguard stood stronger than ever, its energy core now enhanced with a new kind of magical amplification. Felix had taken their sabotage and turned it into power. The day of the competition arrived. The grand arena, a massive coliseum of steel and stone, buzzed with the anticipation of thousands. The air was thick with the smell of oil and magic, and the cacophony of machinery being tested filled the arena. Felix's heart raced as he stood in the staging area, surrounded by towering mechanical creations, each one a testament to the wealth and power of the families who had created them. He glanced at his own machine, the Vanguard, a sleek, powerful creation built with equal parts craftsmanship and passion. It was smaller than many of the others, but Felix knew that size wasn't everything. He had designed it for speed, agility, and adaptability, traits that would serve him well in the competition. As the first round began, Felix's nerves gave way to focus. The candidates were tasked with navigating a mechanical obstacle course filled with traps, steam vents, and magical fields that scrambled the machine's systems. Felix's competitors, with their massive machines, struggled to navigate the tight turns and sudden obstacles. But the Vanguard, with its smaller frame and enhanced energy core, moved with precision. Felix guided it through the course with ease, his hands flying across the controls as he adapted to each new challenge. By the time he crossed the finish line, the crowd was roaring. Felix had not only completed the course but had done so in record time. The elites were not pleased. In the days that followed, Felix faced increasing opposition. Whispers of sabotage filled the air, and more than once, he caught rival candidates casting dark glances his way. But Felix was undeterred. He had come this far, and nothing would stop him now. In the second round, the stakes were higher. The candidates were pitted against one another in direct combat, their machines facing off in battles that tested not only their strength but their strategic minds. Felix found himself facing an opponent from one of the oldest families in the Imperia, a hulking man named Alistair, whose machine, the Iron Juggernaut, was built for raw power. As the battle began, Felix knew that a head-on attack would be suicide. The Iron Juggernaut was too large, too powerful to defeat through sheer force. Instead, Felix relied on the Vanguard's speed and agility, darting around the larger machine, striking at its weaker points. Alistair grew frustrated as his attempts to crush the Vanguard failed. Felix could see the openings in his strategy, and with a well-timed maneuver, he managed to disable one of the Iron Juggernaut's legs, sending the massive machine crashing to the ground. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Felix stood victorious once again. But as he looked out at the faces of the elite families, he saw something else: fear. They knew now that Felix was a real threat, not just to their machines, but to the very power they held over the empire. As Felix stood triumphant in the arena, the cheers of the crowd echoed in his ears, but his eyes were fixed on the elite candidates watching from their high seats. Their faces, once filled with confidence and disdain, now showed traces of unease. Felix knew that their fear wasn't just of him as a competitor, it was of the change he represented. He had shaken the foundations of their world, a world where they had long held dominion. But this was only the beginning. The final round loomed ahead, and it would be the most challenging test yet. Each candidate had survived the initial trials, but now it came down to two: Felix, the young underdog fighting for the future, and Lord Reginald, the seasoned, ruthless representative of the Empire's ruling elite. Reginald's machine, the Iron Leviathan, was a towering behemoth, much larger and more powerful than anything Felix had faced so far. In the preparation days before the final battle, Felix barely left his workshop. He knew the vanguard was formidable, but against the Iron Leviathan, he would need more than just raw power or agility. He'd need a strategy that pushed both his mechanical and magical expertise to their limits. Late one evening, as Felix fine-tuned the vanguard systems, there was a knock at his workshop door. To his surprise, it was Lyra, the mage engineer who had become a close ally over the course of the competition. She stepped inside, her face serious but calm. "I've heard rumors," she said quietly. "Reginald doesn't plan to play fair in the final round." Felix raised an eyebrow. "What else is new?" "Sabotage and dirty tricks have been their tactics from the start." Lyra shook her head. "This is different. Reginald's team is working on something dangerous, something that breaks the laws of both magic and mechanics. I don't know the full details, but they're planning to use it against you." Felix clenched his fists. He had expected underhanded moves, but this was more than just a personal attack. It was a blatant attempt to maintain their grip on power, even if it meant cheating on the grandest stage. "Then I'll need to be ready," Felix said, determination hardening his voice. "I won't let them win. Not like this." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "I can help. There's a way to enhance the vanguard, but it's risky. It involves channeling magic directly into the core, beyond its usual capacity. It could give you the edge you need, but it could also destroy the machina and you, if you're not careful." Felix thought about it for a long moment. The competition had already pushed him to his limits, both physically and mentally, but this was his last chance. If he could pull off this enhancement, it might just be the edge he needed to topple Reginald and the elite families once and for all. "Let's do it," Felix said, his voice resolute. Together, they worked late into the night, weaving the delicate balance of magic and mechanics into the vanguard's core. Lyra's expertise in magical amplification meshed perfectly with Felix's engineering knowledge, creating something entirely new. It was risky, but Felix could feel the surge of energy pulsing through the machine, stronger than ever before. On the morning of the final battle, the arena was more crowded than Felix had ever seen. People from all across the Empire had come to witness the climactic showdown. The tension in the air was palpable as the announcer called the competitors to the field. Felix piloted the vanguard into the arena, his heart pounding. Across from him, Reginald stood atop the Iron Leviathan, a smug smile on his face. The Leviathan was a monstrous creation, towering over the vanguard, with massive spike limbs and a cannon that crackled with dark energy. As the battle began, Reginald wasted no time. He unleashed a barrage of attacks, the Leviathan's cannon firing beams of raw magical energy that scorched the arena floor. Felix barely managed to evade the first few blasts, the vanguard's nimbleness allowing him to dodge the deadly strikes. But Reginald had anticipated this. With a flick of his controls, the Leviathan's spiked arms swung down in a wide arc, attempting to crush the vanguard beneath its massive weight. Felix spun the vanguard out of range, but the impact sent shock waves through the ground, throwing him off balance. The crowd gasped as the vanguard staggered, sparks flying from its joints. Reginald grinned, confident in his machine's superiority. "Give it up, Felix." Reginald's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. "You're out of your league. You think a child's toy can stand against the Iron Leviathan? I built this machine to win, and nothing can stop it." Felix grit his teeth, gripping the controls tighter. He wasn't out yet, not by a long shot. With a surge of determination, Felix activated the magical enhancements Lyra had helped him install. The vanguard's core glowed with a brilliant blue light, its movements suddenly faster, more fluid. The crowd gasped in awe as the vanguard dodged the next attack with incredible speed, closing the distance between itself and the Leviathan. Reginald's eyes widened in surprise as Felix launched a counterattack. The vanguard's enhanced speed allowed it to slip beneath the Leviathan's hulking frame, striking at its vulnerable joints. Sparks flew as Felix targeted the Leviathan's legs, using the vanguard's powerful claws to tear into the metal. But Reginald wasn't done. With a furious roar, he activated his machine's hidden weapon, a massive chain whip that lashed out from the Leviathan's side, glowing with dark magic. Felix barely had time to react as the whip cracked through the air, striking the vanguard with a deafening clang. The impact sent Felix reeling, his vision blurring as the vanguard staggered backward, its armor dented and smoking. Reginald laughed, his voice filled with arrogance. "You thought you could beat me with a few tricks? You're nothing compared to the power of the elites." For a moment, it seemed like all was lost. The vanguard systems flickered, the damage severe. But then, through the haze of pain and exhaustion, Felix remembered why he was fighting. This wasn't just about winning the competition, it was about giving the people a voice, breaking the chains of the old system. With a final burst of energy, Felix pushed the vanguard forward, its core flaring with magic. He had one last move, one that could end the battle once and for all. Using the remaining power of the magical amplification, Felix directed the vanguard to launch itself into the air, soaring above the Leviathan. Time seemed to slow as the vanguard descended, its claws aimed directly at the Leviathan's energy core. Felix unleashed the full power of the machine in one devastating strike, driving its claws into the Leviathan's heart. The explosion that followed was deafening. The Leviathan shuddered, sparks and fire erupting from its core as it collapsed to the ground in a heap of twisted metal. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a wave of triumph that washed over Felix. Reginald's face twisted in disbelief as his machine lay destroyed before him. For the first time, he looked small, defeated, his power shattered along with the Leviathan. Felix stood victorious, but he knew this was only the beginning. As the dust settled, the people began to chant his name. Felix had proven that innovation and heart could overcome wealth and power. He had won the competition. But more importantly, he had given the people hope. In the days that followed, the political landscape of the empire began to shift. The elite families, having lost the competition, were forced to relinquish some of their control. The power that had once been concentrated in the hands of the few now began to spread to the many. Felix, the young inventor from humble beginnings, had not only won a battle but had started a revolution. And though the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, he knew one thing for certain: a change was coming, and the people would no longer be silenced. As he stood in his workshop, surrounded by his tools and inventions, Felix smiled. The future of the empire lay ahead, and he would be there to help guide it, one invention at a time.